Mechanism of change. What is it that we're desiring in this moment for many of us? Are we here to enlighten ourselves to the nature of who we are from various levels of love? Love of life is where many are. And when we do this vision from Brenda's soul, you must understand that she is hearing from several souls in unison at one point. It can feel like you are uniting with so many souls that they have their own disparate visions coming through for who they were in their moments. And yet, when we understand the nature of why we are here to do what needs to be done, is what many souls are saying. I'm not here to vibrate in the beauty of those who are trying to kill me in my mind, is where many go. And yet, those of us who understand the nature of a, quote, soul possession, are those that are on the outs, for the most part, in the coming generations. Those are the souls that have not figured out yet what it is like to unite with your own soul and bring through the wisdom of the moment. We are not controlled on an internal view in the same way that many who have lost themselves to those lower natures of who they are. Do you understand the difference? There are those souls who are utilizing medicine to control the visions of what others were not able to do on their own, which is a unifying of their soul's visions. So, what we also know now is that many of us are gifted in the spiritual enlightenment vision and are able to handle the projections of others upon our hearts, correct? Do you see why some have opened themselves up to the beauty of the love of all, and then they project the vision of, I love some more than others? Is that not a natural attribute for us as souls to inhibit, right? Are we supposed to equally align with every soul on this plane? This is why many free themselves from the vision of, I'm no longer even analyzing the souls that are working on that vision that she just revealed. Do you understand how many souls are now caretaking their hearts enough to know they must lift themselves above the fray in order to see past the wisdom that others are granting themselves on this plane as of the high? You have to understand that those souls who are claiming that those souls who are able to bring forth the truth, wisdom, beauty, and honesty of each and every one of us as a unique entity, correct? There are so many instances of survival benefits for those who go into the process of, I'm aligning with my own soul first and foremost. That's the nature of what we want most to do. However, what happens is those poor souls are often left on their own, to their own devices, to try to figure out what it is that they are working with. And when society has said, most often, one of two things. In the spiritual enlightenment, you are of God and all that glory, correct? It is of shamanic vision that Brenda also brought through, which means we know we are not all operating on the same vibration in the vision of whose God is Brenda working with. It is not about the nature of God. It's about the nature of how do we as a collective vision change the vision. But most are saying the mechanism of change is an internal process, and those souls who are willing to go in, do the work that it takes to unite not only your soul, but your highest vision of who you are, you will start to feel the vibration of your own soul coming to life. It feels as if you're the beauty and the wisdom embodied. That's the nature of what I've done. I don't deny people their, quote, projections of love that they feel that is, to tell people that they are, quote, working with a soul of soul of soul. We don't even plant the seeds for others at this point. But we are here to tell the truth about those souls who thought they went through that process that others of the, quote, church were projecting upon them. Do you want to know what that's like that Brenda had to work through based on the limited mindsets and conditions of the time and place in which that information was brought through. The same holds true for the psychological understanding of a lot of those, quote, mental health issues. We've got it all figured out. That's my soul. If I can come to you and tell you what it is that is working out on the screen, this is where most people go. This is where Brenda is. My soul sets me free from those projections most often. But if I need people to hear it in order to believe it, this is why she was shadow working for a long time. These are those natures of, I'm looking at people from various levels of love. I see the beauty in each and every one of us, whether or not we are in the, quote, highs of our lives or not. Often it is the most struggled souls who have the most wisdom. Often it is the most intense victimization circumstances that can snap people out of the idea that they are anything other than beautiful in their moments. But right now, this is where we are as a country, as a nation, right? There's a difference between my country, 'tis of thee, and the nations at large. Okay, my country, 'tis of thee, was of a time and place in which most cherished each other, correct? Not even close. But it was this veil of illusion that we as a society in this country have been operating under. There is no division in essence on the soul level. It is a working out of the energy of the moment that most are working with. Do you understand how she knows how to go there? Do you plant the seeds of division in your mind, or are you seeing us as a collective vision working through issues that need to be brought up? That will show you where you land for most. It will do the honor of discovery for many. My change within is where Brenda goes most often. I see the changes within as I vibrate in the beauty of who I am. Do I feel better when I'm aligning with the hatred in my mind? Some will. Some will unite in that vision in order to project the vision of we are here to unite in change. And hatred is part of the aspect that many are fearful of when they come to the nature of an enlightenment of who I am. I can disagree with you and not like you and still love you as a soul. That's the nature of where your souls are. That's the nature of where you are when you rise up. We don't have to feel the vision of love as an adoration of each and every one of us, but some of us are able to reach those wonderful vibrations, as Brenda would put it. Others would say, I hold you in honor, and that's the most characteristic of who we are. To honor someone is the same as saying, I love you, but without the physical or mental attachment that often comes with familial or romantic affiliations, if that makes any sense. The love of a child is where our souls go. We are like children upon this plane most often, crying, dying, and it's like an effigy. There's no child left behind in this vision, which means those who have projected pain and misfortune for many who are trying to bring through their vision of love, of the truth, and are getting rejected for it, namely because of the victim mindset that many don't want to admit is part of the issue. It's a projection of their own will, in essence, that many are holding back. And in doing that vision, others whose will is coming forth, saying, I have the ticket to paradise, is where Brenda lands most often. She knows that her soul has various levels of understanding for those who are on the I'm a soul in need of comfort or of adoration, versus those who are saying, I need to hurt you in order for my plan to become engaged in this world. When people start aligning with the nature of change from a place of the change is a coming, it means it's a foretelling of the future that she brings through. Now, she was granted Netanyahu, not just in a previous session, but weeks before and leading up to the current crisis. She was hearing of the 9/11 vision enhancement that was also being compared. It's a comparative analysis that's now being brought forth between the U.S. and Israel. What she as soul has done is to honor both sides of those conflicts. There is one side that's in the right, correct? Do we not see where this is going to help us to analyze our vision of what changes are made on the soul level with Brenda when she writes down those visions and puts them in the public sphere, versus those of us who know she receives wisdom about people and things in society that most would be amazed and astonished by. You are not the only soul in your vision that loves who you are. When people say that Biden and Netanyahu are in alliance, it is not in the same vibration in which it is portrayed here in the news. Do you feel the vibration of soul as it is coming through from their friendship as a soul versus their partnership as a soul? We partner in unity against terrorism is where they are, knowing full well that most know the man as he was is not in alignment with Netanyahu's current policies of conviction. Now, what that states is that this is the nature of why soul vision can become very disaligning of certain souls, because they want to hear the straight dope of what's going to come, and others will say, I don't even dare predict it because of the nature of where Brenda goes. Brenda hears the murders of the children and the families and those who were devastated from both sides. She hears from the tragedies and the triumphs of such souls. In unity, we create. In division, we change. Do you see the difference in the tone and the vibration of those two aspects of soul and how we word our wisdom? So when people can say we're creating a dynamic between Biden and Netanyahu that is in collusion with another soul, who Brenda was indeed hearing from, which was the vision of Anwar Sadat. Now, his name was being brought up several times in her vision yesterday as she was caretaking the hearts of many upon the screen from various planes of love, of worship. She's not of worshiping any one soul over another. Does that tell you something about who she is? So you see, the neutrality vision is not who she is. She's not for terrorism. She's for peace. How we bring about the peace is where many are aligning. So this mechanism of change is the vision in which we allow ourselves the ability to see different vibrations of who we are as souls. So I can agree to partner against terrorism and still understand those who are in the vision of I need to create it in order to get my point across. Does it mean it's right for all of us? No way, Jose. Does it mean it's in honor of anyone else on this plane? You would be surprised how many people are assuming Anwar Sadat was of change when he was indeed more of, I want peace first and foremost on the soul level. He has his brutal confessions he could come through with about where he was in his mind versus what he portrayed in the vision of the love of self and others. He was hoping to be condemned by those of peace in his mind because in essence, he says, my mind is not made up yet whether I can trust the vision of Jewish settlers to be free enough in their minds to see why we might have been able to work together in a different vision of peace moving forward had I not been slaughtered at the hands of another. Do you see how many souls who are of peace and trying to work things through in a way that benefits both sides is often seen as an issue in this world we vibrate in? So when we talk about the changes are coming, these are the ones that will be portrayed upon the screen because they're basically those that are set in stone for the most part at a certain point. Those calamities of soul are often the ones that get portrayed on the screen, and that's a soul level vision that it has been explored before about why those can indeed come through ahead of time versus my life is coming to me in the beauty of who I am. And this is where my soul knows how to take me in those moments of freedom or desperation. Sometimes Brenda's soul says she's vibrating in desperation, and she had to realign her soul with the idea of, I'm not desperate for attention, am I? And that's where I was in my mind, feeling the pressure of society to produce visions on a certain scale of vision. And yet, in essence, I know it's the beauty of my soul and my honesty to let people know that this is not the place for most people to try to align with. There are certain souls that know how to handle the vibration of peace with warmongers united. Okay, that's where people are saying these ideas are that it's about war. And in essence, as a collective, we've already discussed the nature of how we stabilize society is how we focus on those areas where there is not war, but where there is peace. The same can be said in the nature of the peace within. Why do you think Brenda is able to bring through those souls that don't align with her in their minds on this plane? It's because on a soul level, she's attracting those souls who love the nature of what soul vibration really is. And when you arise in the vision of it, you don't fear who they are. You understand the nature of conviction. You understand the nature of changes are making themselves known. This is where people realize that no matter what we do or say, there are changes afoot. We vibrate in the beauty of experience, knowledge, guaranteed wisdom, right? That's part of it. Notice the repeat in it. Wisdom. Wisdom. There's a difference between those who vibrate in the beauty of I've got wisdom at hand and knowledge in the mind. This is where we go. We align with those who align with our minds most often. And yet it's the peace process that many are wishing for, all of us on this plane. Whether or not people want to believe that or not. There are those souls who understand why we're talking about peace when in essence war is afoot. Brenda vibrates in the nature of I'm at war with my own soul sometimes. It's not war, but it can be felt as such. And that's the inner journey of discovery that many have to vibrate out of and say, oh, it's just me having a moment. I love my family and friends. I must disconnect from certain souls sometimes if they try to intrude into my own vision of what a loving vibration is for me. Do you see how some people just vibrate away from each other? This is what is characterized as a natural, flowing vision of love. We just vibrate away from each other for the most part. We don't necessarily align against one another. We just don't align with each other. We're just neutral in our vision. That's where some people can go. But if you really want to know what Brenda is doing, she's very much of the love of various soul visions. I'm pro-soul, but I'm also pro-positions. I know which positions I align with, and yet I can still respect others in their own disagreements for what they themselves would say is not the right place for her. You have your own projections of where you think you want to go versus where I know I need to go when I align with my own soul. Do you understand the difference between a soul who's been reunited with their own soul versus someone who's utilizing someone else's wisdom as theirs? This is the strength of her soul. I get in contact with your own soul's vision, and I bring forth the wisdom from your soul and those that you're creating with. And that's when they are very truthful and understanding of the dynamics at play between various parties. Right? And when we say that, we don't mean necessarily like political parties, but there's an essence of that. But it could be about the individual souls and what they are bringing to the vision. And most of us, in essence, as souls, are at this place where we love each other and we want to free each other from the vibration that change needs to be made, always. Versus a loving vision of I get to just be free in my vibration that doesn't have to create a dramatic effect for people to understand the nature of why that feels so good. How many people are vibrating in the highs and lows of society, right? Or even in their lives. Oh man, that was a great time. Oh, that was a low time. And yet all of those beautiful days of reflection, enjoyment, day-to-day household duties, beautiful words of wisdom, kindness abounding. These are what those days are that many are forgetting about, and others are more worried about, I didn't forgive this one or that one at the end of the day, because in essence, they feel like they've lost out on something versus an understanding that we're not all here to be vibrating in the same place and time in which we started. This is why some people leave their families behind. This is why some people go and adventure away from their families. This is a natural attribute of many of us who say, I must be my own soul. I don't need to be caretaken by my family always. I come to terms with the disagreements of many souls who would say, but I love you and I know what's best for you. Do you know what that feels like to have that kind of vision come through with those who are, quote, in the vision of my family is my guide? Do you want to know how many people are going to say, I would listen to my mom's soul always? We understand. Have you not understand the nature of why they're there laughing, going, oh, she vibrates in the beauty of her own soul? Until I don't. And that's the nature of why I'm able to bring through the beauty of channeling as an aspect only of who I am, not the reality of who I am in each and every moment. My vision of love gets brought to me daily. That's where many are. And my family tree is cherished always, even in those moments of disparity of vision that we may have had with those of others, other trees in our past. We unite in the vision of understanding our lives and our loves. Our loved ones are there always creating changes for us. They are afoot. It means that it happens naturally. It happens honestly. It's an honest expression of love that I bring forth for most. What I'm not doing is I'm not caretaking the hearts of many who claim they are being treated negatively by me in their minds. I am not a perfect vision of Jesus, and neither was he. What does that mean? That's going to throw some people back. Think carefully about what his vision would caretake our hearts in and expect for us to adore. Our beauty in each and every moment. The alignment of our hearts with our own souls. And does that get portrayed as anything else by someone else on this plane? Of course it does. I don't vibrate in the beauty of being the perfect person. It's a vibration that so many are crying for. I want to be perfect. I want to be perfect. And yet we aren't. Except in the beauty of who we are. Whether or not I made a choice that didn't serve somebody, that's the nature of making mistakes that many are saying they're filled with them. And yet Brenda is, I've learned my lessons. How is that a mistake? I'm growing, I'm changing, I'm experiencing life in ways that others didn't. I united in freedom with my own soul. What can you give me that's going to set me free from who I am, right? It's more about who you think I need to be. So that idea that I have to change myself for somebody else's pleasure is literally ridiculous in the minds of many. And yet, we have so many souls who claim that they're listening to others who are valued more in their wisdom based on what they're learning from them. And that's the beauty of it. I want change. How do I do it, Brenda? You vibrate in the beauty of who you are, and you see where you feel most comfortable moving in the next step. I'm taking a next step in my life. That's where many are. What's the next step in my journey? I'm moving to the beauty of love of all. That's where Brenda went, and it hit her hard with many who said, we'll test you on that one. And yet she aligns with the beauty of her soul that can actually do the work for her. And she doesn't have to vibrate in the beauty of the wisdom of it. And this is the nature of aligning with those who say we're just perfect as we are, whether or not others agree with us or not. And it means that it's not something to be held as a higher than vision, but you can't deny the vibrational shifts in it. And so that's why those of us who know what it's like to be united with our own vision of the high can very freely convince people that they themselves are there, but you would know it. And it wouldn't be questioned. And you would just have that inkling of everything fits so well in my soul. That's the nature of what it feels like, a perfect fit. No doubts, no concerns, no wisdom to be disseminated to those who are freely critiquing all of our hearts for wanting to bring peaceful messages of love and honesty through when others are trying to bring war within. I often try to encourage people to reflect upon the messages they send themselves in those words that they use upon the screen. And yet, in essence, it's still cherished and adored by each and every one of our souls for its moment of reflection. But in an effort to be of wisdom, that is where that would lead us. I no longer wisely disseminate words of wisdom for those who are hateful for me. That's where I was at one point. And I had to lift myself out of that idea that the soul level understanding was anything but that, right? That's where some go. They feel like soul vision is a scary place and you need to vibrate in the beauty and fear of it. And when you hear the loving words of wisdom from those that you don't necessarily agree with here, it can be a troubling experience for a lot of us, because we have our values. We have our values, and that's usually where that is our values are not in alignment. But can I still bring forth the information? It's a tricky place for a lot of us to go. But I love who I am. And that's a beautiful place where most are struggled in their minds, struggling. It's her soul that does that to her, by the way, to place that grammatical error in there, so people understand that she's switched into the vision of her soul as a higher than soul. It is beautiful, by the way. It's a caretaking of the heart. Others will know what the vision of a higher self is, the soul, if they come into contact with it. They will understand the nature of utilizing words. Others would say weapons. Our weapons are our words, is what was brought through in another vision. And this is why Brenda is saying, I understand. I have my own ideas about what is of weaponry versus the relatability that many are going to start to understand. If you have ever been labeled as the victim of physical, mental, or emotional abuse, you need to vibrate in Brenda's vision immediately and ask yourself, how did she get out of it? She walked that walk with her soul. And she survived, is what many would say. And she said, oh, I put on my hat and I said, I know how to thrive outside of the vision of it. I don't have to caretake others who think that they need to remain in that state in order to be anything other than beautiful. See, that's where many are. They want to remain in the victim of another soul instead of in the uniting of, we created a beautiful vision for ourselves. In essence, right? Most will not do that. Brenda said, I'm done with that high of the high that says, oh, we claimed the victimhood was beautiful for us. It was a lesson. We're honored for our lessons. Okay, our souls will treat us as queens, right? It's not in the sense of royalty, but we get cherished for who we are when we go through that process of, I don't need to tell people that are hurting others that they are somehow beautiful in that moment. There's a soul vision that would say it's a very different process that you're going through when you're in the internal vision of, I'm loving who I am and I'm going through that process and I accept and adore every bit about myself. That's part of that. And that's when then you can understand why others are there in their moments. Everyone who walks this plane has a vision of, I love who I am, vibrating within their soul. Okay? Whether or not you agree with their values, their deeds, or their duties. Okay? Because many are assuming that all souls who are killing are in the vision of, I want to do it. Okay? And that's why there are so many visions of disparity among people who are saying this is more about war than peace. It's how you vibrate out of it and get back into peace. And that's the nature of loving ourselves through the process of war. We look around and find the places that bring us peace first. And then we can go in and see what's the duty of Biden and Netanyahu at this point. They have a duty to protect the people from the terrorist, is the ultimate aim that they are aiming for, even on that highest level of love. It's known what they are doing and why they're doing it and how they're doing it and the results that come from it. And the wisdom that can be disseminated for all of us will be done so in time. They have their plans that they are making. They're utilizing weapons of control of the media as well as the minds of others around them to see the beauty of what they disparage in others and relate to in others. they have the conundrum of critique upon their hearts. And they know that they have to cherish the wisdom of uniting in a vision of freedom from terrorists, because that's a theme playing out in Biden's world. It's his unity vision that he's working with. So he's trying to unite with those who can see a path to peace rather than the vibration of war, even though that is the nature of where we are. He needs to know where that path of peace resides. And this is why he often comes into Brenda's wisdom to say, what is your opinion about our path to peace? You would be surprised how high she goes in the vision of what his soul wants. He wants to vibrate in the vision of those of control of the past. Those souls are being honored for their wisdom of knowing that they were the peacemakers of our hearts, and they deserve to be honored. And when they say that, it's Brenda's honoring of those souls who tried their best but were dishonored for trying to bring peace where peace didn't exist. And this is why those souls know that this is a temporary injunction against the Arafat vision. So other souls are wanting to come into the vision of her soul to bring their visions and their opinions, right? It's a soul level understanding of where they were in their moments and where they were in their minds, and how they see the difference between what we're working with now versus where they were. And so we're not going to keep going, but this is a forward motion of where people are going. People are saying, let's look to the past. And Brenda's saying we have to look forward and bring those steps back. And she already knows where this is heading in essence, which is the uniting of wisdom and the vision of religion are at a crossroads. What's at play in Israel is not just about religion, but there is messages of war for Brenda if she continues down that path, is what some will say. And she says, I'm not worried about it. I understand that some of the messages that I bring forth are very disconcerting to some souls because they don't know what is a brewing on the soul level. So what I would say is, you understand that there are souls who are there saying we support and love you for being honest in your, they would say it's a deception of soul to bring forth the vision of another soul named Seth, who indeed is in alignment with what Brenda is seeing, hearing, and able to discourage others in talking about for the most part, which is that idea of the third Christ soul and where that soul is right now in his beauty on this plane as a child, versus where he needs to go in his mind first and foremost before he can bring about the changes that are needed in order for peace to exist on this plane. And it is not an end of days scenario again. Okay, so that's why she's working with the Middle East, very much so, in various ways, but it's only because she honors their hearts as a soul. Okay, so this is why people understand the nature of I love who I am and they love who they are. And that's why we work together to work out the issues of shifts in our vision. It's consciousness creating. And that opens up the whole door to very many souls and views. But at this point and at this juncture of who we are, we want to say thank you for watching. Be prepared for the Middle East to be it's like bomb blasted with many views about who they thought they were. Okay, don't always project wisdom as somehow evil if you're not seeing it for what it is. We have no access to soul levels where Brenda was with her dad. Okay? He knew now as a soul he was biased and envisioned with what was being portrayed on one or two news stations versus the nature of, I love who I am now. Brenda's my soul savior. She set me free from myself as a victim, as a child. Okay, he's no longer the victim as a soul. He's able to fly free and enjoy his vision. This is a personal message for her. So while she vibrates in the beauty of the news in many ways, it's because she gets taught along the way about her focus, and then she gets to bring about the wisdom related to those issues or struggles or even the beauty of what she's focused on. Whether or not people can understand or see it. Okay, it's a give and take relationship we have with each other. This is another friend of mine who I disconnected from, and we vibrate in the beauty of love of ourselves first and foremost, and then we came together like this, and then we saw ourselves kind of coming at a head a little bit. Okay, but with that in mind, I want to say thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you want to receive notifications about future videos. And as always, stay curious, wise, and soulful. Have a wonderful day.